So I had hysterectomy in 2022.
Yeah.
Since then, I had about 3 months afterwards, I was diagnosed with two prolapses, a cystocele and a rectocele. Symptoms from the prolapses, the heaviness, I had back pain. So pretty much the last 2 years have been just pain.
Yeah.
And then I was seeing a pelvic floor therapist pretty much that entire time. She was fantastic. She had three prolapses herself. And so she could
Wow.
really empathize with the emotional toll it was taking on me. So she was phenomenal, but my body just wasn't responding. Like it was just
Right.
like, you can do the work, but that's it. And so I was just stuck in this cycle of pain and I just needed out of it.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. What grades were those prolapses? It's just,
Cystocele was mild and the rectocele was 2.5 on bad days, or if I would come off of a cough, it would get closer to a 3.
okay. So same as me. And did you have that belief that most people have, most women have about erectocele, that that's the hardest one to heal? That's the one you'll never heal. Did you have that going on too?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. All right then. And so tell us the really, really cool story about what's happened in the last couple of weeks.
So I saw my urogynecologist, what was it, 2 weeks ago now,
Yeah.
for my just regular checkup.
Mhm.
I had been coming off of a sickness prior to that, so my symptoms were terrible.
Yeah.
Um, and then I had this scheduled. I actually, the reason I scheduled it was because I wanted to get fitted for a pessary.
Oh,
My
right.
symptoms were bad, and I'm just like, I don't know what to do. So that's why I had this appointment scheduled. I went into the appointment and she did her thing, and she's like, I don't see a cystocele. And she said, and your rectocele, she said, it's so mild. She said, you have a little bit of weakening. She said, but I barely would grade it a 1. And so
Oh,
I'm like,
well.
just looking at her like, really? Like, okay. All the while, I'm super excited. I want to jump up and down, but I still am like, this can't be right. And so I went to my pelvic floor therapist the very next day for my weekly appointment. I didn't say anything
Yeah.
because I just wanted to see kind of what she thought. And she's like, your muscles have never felt like this before. She's like, what's happening? I'm like, I'm doing the program, which we'd previously talked about.
Yeah.
And she did not feel the cystocele. And she again said, yeah, the rectocele is just maybe a little bit of weakening and a grade 1. She said, but she reiterated that your muscles have never felt like this before.
So let's just say that because this will be, really full on for people to hear who are listening to this, that in just a couple of weeks, as it was around about 2.5 weeks in the program that this happened, right? It's under 3 weeks.
I think we had gotten sick the beginning of January,
Mhm.
and that's when my symptoms got so bad, was after my cough. And
Yeah.
so then it was shortly thereafter that I came upon the program, and I'm like, okay. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So two specialists confirmed you took a grade 2.5 rectocele, sometimes maybe even a 3 to a 1, or actually just a weak posterior wall by the sounds of it, and
yes,
cystocele completely gone.
yes, yeah,
Phenomenal work, my friend.
which is great. But I think more than anything, my symptoms were coming from the muscles, the tight muscles. So I have been on vaginal Valium to
Right.
try to
Yeah.
get them to release, because we've tried manual releasing, we've tried massage, and they just wouldn't release. And I think that's where the majority of my symptoms were actually coming from, was from those tight muscles and not necessarily the prolapses themselves.
Yeah.
And so I haven't taken a Valium for since before those appointments.
Wow. Wow. So
Yeah.
you so hypertonicity,
Mhm.
which is now know emotions at root, is how much better would you say it is? Is it 90% better? And what percentage would you put on that from where it was before?
Um, It depends on the day, but now I am so much more aware of if I am anxious about something, I can I can literally feel everything just get tight.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm able to make that connection now and to do the processes or do whatever I need to kind of get myself out of it before it just starts spiraling. So I
Yeah.
would say at great days, I would say 90% better.
Incredible. Well done for doing those processes.
Yeah.
And has that, that improvement in the hypertonicity, and that tightness, and obviously the anxiety root, has that helped bowel movements as well? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So for the last 2 years, essentially since my hysterectomy, I have been on something, whether
Yeah.
right after surgery or Metamucil or Miralax or something. I've had to have something. And I always kept saying, I'm not constipated. Like, I just can't go. Like, I don't know what's happening. And then come to find out it's because the muscles are so tight. They're just not allowing me to pass stool, right?
Yeah.
So I've been on something for the last 2 years, daily, pretty much daily, if not daily, every other day or weekly. The last time I took anything was probably close to 4 weeks ago. And I've gone every single day except one day.
My
Easily.
God.
Yeah, easily.
How does that feel, Sam?
Uh, Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Because everything revolved around me being able to do that so that I could get on with my day, right?
Yeah.
And not like be constantly worried about, what am I going to eat? Is this going to affect it? What did I have today? What did I not have enough water? All of the things. And so the pressure itself just and everything related to that is so much better.
Yeah. We have a lot of talk in our group, don't we, about pooping, because it's so important.
It is.
So important. And I think somebody in the group said the other day, where do you go to on the emotional scale when you have a good poop? And I said, joy. When you haven't had many years when you have not pooped, it is joy.
It literally is. You do the poopy dance. Josie and I do that. Yep.
Brilliant. Is that you and your daughter do the poopy dance?
Yep.
I won't ask you to do that for us right now, but It would be great.
I'd appreciate that.
Brilliant. Okay, so talk to us. Obviously, we've had incredible physical results there, but talk to us about how working with us positively impacted you in other ways, Sam.
Oh, so I'm going to be brutally honest. When I was looking into the program and I was watching everybody else's interviews, they all kind of reiterated the same thing. Like, they were helping their prolapse or the physical symptoms, but like their big takeaway was this, what I call the brain work, right? The mindset. Yeah. And I was honestly like, whatever, I'm like, I don't give a crap about that. Like, I'm okay. Like, I can manage life, just heal this prolapse. Like, I just want these gone. Yeah. And so I really was not expecting that at all. Right. Even though all these women were saying it, I'm like, yeah, whatever. So I think that was a huge surprise to me. I remember watching Rosalie's interview. Yes. And I remember her saying that she told herself, like, if a bad thought came in, she's like, no, Rosalie, and it goes out. Yeah. And I remember thinking, this woman is like Superwoman, like, that's fantastic for her. Like, that's not me. Like, I have lists for lists. That I could never get to a point where I could be able to do that. So that really stuck with me. And I am getting to that point. It's so much easier for me. So I think the mindset, the brain work, and my ability to actually make myself feel better was huge for me and something that I really did not expect.
I can't thank you enough for sharing that, Sam, because I get it. I was one of those. I was a skeptic too, big time. And I think you'll help so many people who feel that way for themselves, that they just can't quite connect with that side of things. And, you're talking about being so skeptical and, having those reservations, which I'm sure lots of people do, and then coming in and getting a result like this. So talk about how has that helped you? How has doing the brain work helped you?
Well, obviously it's given me hope. It just overall, real general, it's helped me feel better. You know, um, I've been put in situations since starting the program that previously I would probably be spiraling, right? I would be
Right.
an emotional wreck, um, just not able to really function on a daily basis because that is all consuming, my thoughts. For example, I had the echocardiogram and they showed the dilated aorta.
Yeah.
So it was very scary for me. I
Yeah.
did take a half a day and bawled and the whole thing, right? But then I I made that decision that I'm like, I'm going to do something about it. So I started my emotional scales on it. I started my deactivation box, and I'm not gonna lie, it was the same emotion in that box 30 times a day for several days, but I
I
did
love it.
it. And so, but it's hard because when you have those situations or you're dealing with something, I think previously the go-to has always been in that fear, hopelessness, state. And so it may not feel good, but it's kind of comfortable because that's what you're used to. And so it really takes that hard work and dedication to be like, you know, I can stay here and it's going to take a lot more work for me to get out of this, but I'm going to do it, you know? And so I think that's really the big takeaway for that was.
So, Sam, were there any results you weren't expecting which pleasantly surprised you?
Yes.
Mhm.
I think everything, in short, like I was surprised by everything because I was so skeptical.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but going into the program, there were three main resistances that were pretty big that I had to overcome, I think, to get to the point where I'm able to move forward.
that's it.
And
Yeah,
the first one was the monetary component, right? That was hard for me because it was a lot of money and I was spending it on myself.
yes.
And so there was some guilt kind of associated with that.
Mhm.
But my husband said to me, Sam, if someone said to you in 5 years, your prolapse will be healed, he's like, what would you pay? And I'm like, I don't know. I would take out a second mortgage on the house. And he's like, well, this is far less than that. So do it.
Yeah,
And so that kind of helped me, overcome that resistance. The second resistance, which was pretty major, was my faith.
yeah,
So I was really concerned that at some point I was going to get into the program and then it wasn't going to align with my beliefs and my faith. And I was just going to have to, nope, this doesn't work for me,
yeah.
or that at some point I was actually going to take this program and it was going to become sort of an idol and I was going to be putting it above God, which
Oh,
I
wow.
was really uncomfortable with.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that was a really hard one for me.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. I'm really glad you
But
brought that up. Yeah,
yeah, and it's something that I knew going into it that I might have to tackle, from a call to a call or a process to a process or whatever it is, and just maneuver my way through it. And
yeah,
I did. But I was definitely able to mesh the two a lot more seamlessly than I really anticipated. So like you would talk about like contrast. And
yes,
I kind of see contrast as God's trials and challenges, right? And so
yeah,
through those trials and challenges, we learn to lean on God more. Because
yeah,
without them, like you're up here in joy and you're chilling, you're kayaking through life. Like you don't need
mm,
God, whatever. But without those, you don't understand the good days and you can't fully appreciate the good days. So you say contrast and I say God's challenges. So it
yeah,
was very easy to just kind of mesh the two.
yeah.
So, and I did not expect that.
Oh, I'm so happy because I think you will open the door for lots of other people to be able to come into the program who have that worry.
Yeah. Um, and then I think my third one was I think what every woman going into the program has is just that self-doubt or just the doubt around the whole program itself, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think all the women are like me. I don't need to go into my background and say I'm a type A, like we
Yeah.
all are.
Yeah,
Um,
totally.
but going through the interviews and listening to the interviews, like I would say, well, her prolapses, they're not as bad, or she hasn't had them as long, or, she doesn't have the tight muscles that is contributing to it, or that person, is she doesn't have lists for lists. Like she could easily just let things go. I was making
Yeah.
up all the excuses and doubting myself and my ability to do the work. And really the only way I've overcome that is just by digging in and just doing the work. And it's hard work. It's,
Yeah.
People don't understand like these little tweaks and little processes. They're hard. They're so hard, but just
Yeah.
by sticking with it and doing them and then I guess, seeing the progress, like the little progress, like the Friday wins, like those little things,
Yeah. Yeah.
and kind of it set the foundation for me. If so, I was like the first couple days, I still had so much doubt. And it wasn't until I buckled down, and part of it went back to the monetary component because I'm like, damn it, if I spent this much, I'm going to milk this program for everything it is,
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
That's partly why we charge what we do.
yeah, like
Yeah.
it makes you take it seriously.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so once I started just getting down to it, doing the work, and kind of building that firm foundation on the program, then I could take those little steps and start to see the wins, like the dilated aorta, or just a little challenge that I was like, oh, look at me. Like I didn't spiral over that, I'm okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just acknowledging those. And that's when like the bigger gains came into play, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Phenomenal. Oh, you've helped so many people with those blocking factors because they are three of the biggest blocking factors. Mm-hmm. So I really, really appreciate you taking the time to go through those.
And I think also like the weekly calls are huge because you have to do the processes, you have to do the work. But my light bulb moments have almost always been in those weekly calls, off of not even my own questions, but they're off of someone else's questions or the context around their question. And I'm like, oh, I've heard that before. Like I've heard you say that before. Why is this now like just clicking, you know? And I think like one of them for me was you had said something to the effect of your brain doesn't know the difference between a thought and an actual event or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that for some reason like clicked, and that came in and I was like, oh shit, like if that's true, my poor body, like it's no wonder I can't heal because like all of these thoughts, like they're terrible. And so at that point I was like, okay, if I want to heal, I've got to do something. I have got to switch, like flip that switch and just get to it and get down. And I think it's easier to say that from higher up on the scale, obviously, like if you're in fear, helplessness, like it's really hard to see that.
Totally.
But the only way to get to a point where you can see that hope and the gains is just by doing the work. And then once I made it up to the boredom and contentment, and I just was hanging out there, then I really made that decision to, in those times throughout my day, really focus on gratitude. Whether, whatever it was. I remember one day I was out, it was chore day. And so I was literally standing outside with my husband as he's shoveling goat poop. And I remember saying, I am so grateful to be standing out here in the sunshine, having a conversation while he shovels poop, literally, because 2 weeks ago I was laid up in bed crying in pain or, And so once I did the processes and I got myself higher up, and then I was able to switch and really focus on the positive things, that's when like that weight lifted, the curtains came, they went away, and I'm like, okay, this can happen.
Wow. I'm speechless. I don't know what to say to that other than incredible. You couldn't have described it better. And, talk a little bit, obviously you've touched on it in the calls, but talk a little bit about the support, because Duncan and I knew that the support of, yes, the weekly calls in the Facebook group, but also the other women in the group would be a huge factor. So just talk a little bit about that if you can, Sam.
I think there is such a link between all of us, just this unspoken like connection. I remember there was a call we were on and you were talking with someone. I don't remember who it was, but like I could just feel her resistance, like in what she was saying, and even her body posture. And I just wanted to be like, no, you can do this. Like you can do this. Keep going. Don't stop. So I think just knowing that there is always going to be someone that you can go to that can actually understand what you're going through emotionally and physically is huge.
Yeah, absolutely. There's some women in the group who say, it's only the group who knows that they even have a prolapse.
Oh, for sure.
Their family doesn't actually even know, but it's only us in that safe space, which is really incredible.
Yeah, it's a safe space. You can say whatever you need to be. You can be vulnerable. I've said things, through my emotional scales and, with the group that I've shared nowhere else, because I know it's going to be okay and you're going to help me through it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. So the final question, but you've touched on it a little bit already, but what would you tell somebody considering investing and working with us, but they have those fears and those same doubts that you had?
I hate to like repeat what all, everyone else says that, like I was you, but it really is true. Like I was really, really resistant. And I had so much doubt in the program and in myself. Like I said, I made up all the excuses why it could work for everyone else, but not for me.
Yeah.
And it did, it is, it's huge. It's not something that even like, I know you go into it with the prolapse, right? But this is what I'm doing and the work I'm doing and the changes I'm making are lifelong. It is not for just till I can heal my prolapse, which I know going into it is like the main thing. It was for me. I didn't care about the mindset and everything else and emotions and blah. I'm just heal this, get it.
Yeah, I love it.
Right. So, but it is like, I'm going to take this with me for life.
Yeah.
I know that whatever challenge I'm going to come with, I can bring this in, and I do think that the faith component, I had my faith coming into the program.
Yes.
And I think that my faith has grown astronomically in the last 4 weeks, and I've always been a pretty faithful person. I believe God has a path for me, and I believe God puts things in my vortex.
Yeah.
It's my job to go and get, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that was huge for me. Even if someone doesn't have faith coming into this, it's definitely going to help them in that aspect. Just knowing that there maybe is a higher power.